welcome to another episode of the Welsh Bee Show. And today I'm in a Vault 33 wine bar in Wrexham to interview its owner and the guy who runs the bar, former Wrexham striker Neil Roberts. And we'll be discussing obviously his career with Wrexham, his reaction to the Hollywood takeover and the massive success that's happening with the club now. We'll also talk about Neil's time at Man City and find out what it's like to run this fantastic wine bar. Neil, thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome. Great to be on.
And you had two spells at Wrexham. Yeah. What was the difference between the two spells? Did you notice a difference when you came back for the second time?
Well, I think the first spell that I had at the club was obviously, coming through the system as a young boy, being a fan, being a little bit naive to, what goes on to make a football club run successfully and efficiently. And I suppose that's the biggest difference between the two spells that I had, is that my first spell at the club was under the sort of management of, a very, very well experienced manager in Brian Flynn. And the ownership at the time was Bryce Griffiths and his family, who were very, very good at running and steering a ship that was a successful one at the time. So obviously my return the second time was slightly different. Very, very good manager in Dennis Smith, who brought me back to the football club. So quite similar to Brian in that respect. And then the ownership had changed hands as well, and obviously it was difficult times for them at the club in terms of the direction in which they were wanting to go. Things weren't happening as well as they'd hoped from an investment point of view, I guess, and they were looking to get out at the time. So it was a very difficult time financially. I think around that period, some moments of success though. Just before you came out, they got promoted in 2003. They won the EFL trophy or whatever it's called then back in 2005. So there was success on the pitch, but financially it was in a mess and it was a constant struggle. What do you remember about Hamilton? Obviously you weren't there then, but just being from Wrexham, being a former player, what was the reaction to Hamilton's and Gutterman, their behaviour? Yeah, well, obviously just, my understanding of it all was that, they were trying to bulldoze the football club and they didn't want anyone to stand in their way, sort of thing. And what they didn't take into account was that the fans were never going to let that happen. So, it was a really sad and unfortunate sort of, if you like, series of events that happened at that time. The club didn't deserve it, the fans didn't deserve it, and both of those people that you name, they were more than they definitely knew what they were in for and what they were trying to do, and like I said, I think they just weren't prepared for the backlash that they were going to face from the fans. And
picked the wrong club, didn't they?
They definitely picked the wrong club. Time. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And it was a really tough time for everyone connected to the football club.
I think they didn't just pick the wrong. I think football is so important to every community. It would have been devastating if the stadium had been sold off. And the club folded, maybe been resurrected in another form, wouldn't quite be the same. But why would they do that? What would be the motivation? Just financial? Surely you can achieve financial success running the club properly.
Yeah, you can, but I think there needs to be a lot more sort of heart and soul from the ownership if they're going to run a club successfully. I think somebody who is purely looking for financial gains, then they're in the wrong industry. It's football. football's not one of those sort of businesses, and I think they found out very quickly that that they definitely picked the wrong club to try and run to rack and ruin, if you like. So yeah, thankfully the fans stood up and were counted, and you know, we saved what is sort of in many ways the lifeline for a lot of people in this city, that they hang on the results. You know, the success of the football club can be seen. It resonates through the place. You know, whether that be the local economy or, you know, just people's general working week. Is a lot of it determined on how the football club does on the weekend.
But as we see now, the potential of the club was always there.
Yeah.
And I remember when Spencer Harris told me during an interview, one of his selling points was the location of Wrexham. It's really the only club in North Wales, the only professional club in North Wales, really. And that gave me an advantage. You've got this north and south sort of divide, and Wrexham sticks up for the north. And that was a selling point, because I know the owners looked at other clubs, Hartlepool being one, which similar type of club, but Wrexham and Wales had its advantages.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you know, we've always been one of those football clubs that sort of attracts from a quite a wide area because of where we sit, if you like. And the North Wales coast, as an example, you know, we've started to see now that the coaches are starting to return. You know, there's busloads of people coming in every week now, and that's brilliant. And what it also does is it also connects the sort of not only sort of the local city centre with those places, but hopefully now what you're seeing is the economy's improving because of the investment that's come in. And you know, I wouldn't be sat here today, as an example, if it wasn't for that investment in the football club.
Are we taking advantage of that properly, do you think? Or we still got a bit to go to capitalise?
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of, you know, good initiatives that are being instigated off the back of the investment in the football club. I think the council have stood up and starting to recognise that they might need to do a little bit more and support-wise for local business. You know, as we sit here today, there's you know, there's a number of good initiatives that are coming into the town. You know, we've got the Focus Wales, which will be happening soon, and we've got the National Eisteddfod that will be taking place in August. And you know, aside from that, you know, there's a real sort of feeling of positivity around everything to do with Wrexham, not just the football.
And what was your reaction to the initial news that Rob and Ryan were interested? Was it okay, this is going to be brilliant, or no, this is a bit of a joke, it's not going to work?
Yeah, I think I was probably the same as everybody. Is I was a little bit sceptical to begin with. Again, not, you know, knowing of. I obviously heard of both of Rob and Ryan, but I think as with anything, and what we'd seen in the past was that maybe a number of false dawns where you know, we were promised so much, but yet very little was delivered, or actually any of it was delivered in terms of the promises. So I think that's just become a little bit of what it means to be a Wrexham fan. I think, you know, is so close yet so far sort of thing. And yet this one has come to fruition, and you know, we're very, very fortunate and lucky to have such brilliant owners that actually get the community bit as well.
It's more than fame, it's more than money. They understand, don't they? And they've got stuck in from day one.
Yeah, for sure. And it's you know, all their objectives and that they set out with, they've ticked them off slowly but surely, and you know, they still continue to do it to this day. And I think the one thing now is that we're probably entering a phase where we won't see as much of Rob and Ryan, you know, from a physical point of view in and around the town, but that's okay, because what they've put into the football club is or they're starting to build now very much so, is an infrastructure that will mean that we're stable should they not be here as much as they were at the very outset.
Well, I believe new shares have just been issued, and they're £14 million worth of shares. The club is valued at what, 100 million? That's the rumour. And we know not to believe rumours, don't we? But 100 million they reckon the club is worth now. That was an article last week somewhere. So they've increased the value dramatically. They've invested a lot of money, and it's been running at a loss for so long. New investors have come in, the Allen family. So we need to see it break even and be self-reliant.
Yeah, and I think that's the sustainability bit is really important, because and that's the bit that I think that Rob and Ryan knew that they would have to lean on themselves and dig deep to support early on. But then what you've got is the documentary, the sponsorship interest now is probably gone through the roof. I wouldn't imagine that there will be too many people that would turn down being involved in some way, shape or form with the football club, the likes of Marks and Spencers and so on and so forth. So that's only gonna grow and grow as the success on the pitch sort of continues. And we're in a very good position on the pitch at the moment, sitting equal second in Division 1, and there's nothing to say that we can't achieve our back-to-back promotion this year.
Well, I think we will. It's there for the taking. It'd be disappointing, I think, if we miss out. Even though we've come a long way, it's there for the taking, I think. I think we're the second best team in the league.
Yeah, well, I mean, the league doesn't lie, and that's where we sit. I think we, without having played particularly well all season, I think we're in a very, very good position that, we're down to the last, 12 games to go now or something like that. And, a lot of the teams still got to play each other around us. So maybe there's that glimmer of hope that we can do it again.
And how has it hit the ground running? How has it been so successful, the takeover? How has the takeover been so successful from day one, really?
Well, I think, on the pitch, I think again, Phil Parkinson has got to take an awful lot of credit. There's things behind the scenes that people won't see that he's done. I think he's set a standard that he hasn't diverted from. There's very much a no nonsense approach to how he builds a team and the squad, and the players have obviously done exceptionally well to get back-to-back promotions. The National League, that was our first big barrier, and we'd been there for 15 years, and that was a massive step to get out of there. But then what he did do was he built for League Two straight away, and whilst we were in the National League, and we were able to go back to back, and that was an unbelievable feat in itself. And then to go into this season with sitting where we sit in the league, and having done that sort of, or stayed there pretty much all season, it's, he has to take a lot of credit. Now, the challenging times come where maybe the fans are a little bit unhappy with maybe the level of performances on the pitch, but it doesn't take away from we're still sat where we're sat. And me as a sort of maybe's taking my fan hat off a little bit. I think outside looking in, I'd say let's just enjoy where we are and embrace the fact that we could be still in that situation of being an automatic promotion spot, and if we're not, then the playoffs will be a massive success.
Yeah, I think people forget that, but I think expectations now are so high that we all say, well, we'll just stay in League Two, just stay survive, and then we'll just stay in League One, just survive, and you see it be so successful. And
it's good to have it's good to have expectation levels, and that's great, but they also need to be managed. And have an expectation that we can keep getting promoted year on year is that's not realistic. We've done it the last 2 years, and we're in a good position now. But when we talk about Championship football and Premier League football, then that is still how I would describe a country mile away sort of thing. And in particular the Premier League, it's great to dream, and you've got to dream, and you've got to have those.
Started off as a bit of a joke, didn't it, if you like, but it's becoming more and more a reality.
Well, yeah, and I think it's that's all that's all dependent on how quickly we want to get there, and if the investment is there, then it needs to be extremely well placed in terms of making that a reality to get to the Premier League. But the championship itself is a mini Premier League, and there's lots of big clubs that are bigger than Wrexham that are in there and feel that they shouldn't be. They should be in the Premier League. But it's going to take a real sort of step up in our performances between now and the end of the season to stay where we are. And it's definitely there. It's there for us, but it'll be a big ask.
How impressed have you been with the recruitment? Because for me, there's been not many poor signings. Virtually the last 3 or 4 years, virtually every signing has done well.
Yeah, and I think that's an indication of where we are as a football club, is that obviously Phil has got a team of people that work around him on the recruitment side, but he'll be doing an awful lot as well. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just kind of seeing somebody doing well at another team. It's the behind the scenes, the player profiling and the character of the players has got to be right, and there's got to be a good fit for amongst the players that we've got already. So I think Phil and his team have got to take a lot of praise for that. And it's not easy. That recruitment world it can be very, very difficult. Because
the signings in January, Smith, what would go into bringing Smith to Wrexham? Obviously, each deal is different, but he's obviously doing very well at Reading. He was scoring 11 goals, the 4th top goal scorer in the league. I think Smith would have been one of probably 5 or 6 that were targeted or highlighted as potential players for us, and again, conversations would have been had with them many months ago to see whether there was any interest in actually coming. But I think anybody that's out there at the moment would say that Wrexham is a place to be, and they want to be part of it, and they want to be part of the story. And it's a great recruitment tool to have in your armoury, if you like. That Smith, as an example, was Reading finding themselves in difficult times, and they've been there, they've been up the top in the Premier League, and they've competed at a high level, and then all of a sudden you see them now, and they've gone through some really difficult times and seem to have fallen off the end of the world sort of thing. And it shows you how important it is to have that stability. When you're doing well, make sure that you put things in place that stabilise and protect you from maybe that happening. Let's just go back a bit to when you signed for Wrexham as a trainee. What's that process like? You're obviously playing local football, being scouted, go for trials. How does that process work?
Yeah, so basically, pretty much hasn't changed all that much over the years. But you would, like you say, you'd play local football. I was part of the Garden Village setup throughout my years in the local youth system, and the youth system then was brilliant. It was really good. It was very competitive. Lots of fantastic young players in it, and I think that's one thing. I'm not so sure now whether it's as good as it was then. I know some leagues have folded, or there's not enough sort of support for grassroots football, but it's a really important piece of the puzzle for developing young footballers. So I came through the local system, played schoolboy football, so we'd always play football in school. Then I was very fortunate to represent sort of North Wales schools, and then it went on to the Welsh schools. And at the same time, I was training with Wrexham. We trained once, sometimes twice a week at the racecourse ground. We didn't really have a training pitch as such, so we would train on the car park most of the time. And then aside from that, maybe we might get to use Stansty, Lex's football pitch to train occasionally as well. So it was the best years of my life in terms of like enjoying my football, playing with my friends, and it was a really sort of just no carefree sort of play football every moment I got the opportunity, and it was great times.
Who was the best player you played with?
Or anywhere. Yeah, well, there was a number of young players that I always looked on and thought they were the fabulous young footballers. But as you kind of go through the system, in particular like the Welsh system, the likes of Craig Bellamy I grew up with and came through with. So Craig is somebody similar age to me. I think he's a year younger, but he was a standout figure for sure.
And 4 caps for Wales, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 4 international.
I'm sure you'd have liked a few more, but that's still decent. That's still a decent achievement.
I always like kind of jumped at the opportunity to go and represent my country. Obviously, anybody would. I think it was one of those that I was very much sort of in awe of all my teammates. So whenever I went away with Wales, it was an opportunity for me to be in the company of your Ryan Giggs, so your John Hartson, or your Craig Bellamy's, and Gary Speed, Chris Coleman. These were all sort of heroes of mine as much as they were sort of colleagues, and I always felt very lucky to go away. I knew I was never going to be sort of a starting player for Wales because I wasn't at that level that the rest of the players were, but what I did do was I enjoyed it for everything it was worth, and training. I made sure that I worked hard in every training session. Mark Hughes as a manager, I listened to everything he had to tell me, and it was some fantastic years. And
in the qualifiers, Euro 2004, when we almost qualified.
Yeah, I was part of the squad then, so I was always involved. I was either on the bench or in the squad, and it was like just real special times.
I always thought Mark Hughes would come to Wrexham at one point. I think that chance is gone now, but
yeah, I think Mark now manager at Carlisle, so it's you wouldn't have said that, would you? 10 years ago when he's managing likes of Man City, Fulham and QPR. So it's a funny game, you never know.
And the way you left Wrexham the second time, very similar to your daughter, how she was let go from Wrexham. Could you just explain what happened? It's a disappointing situation, I think. Yeah,
it was disappointing, and a very difficult time in my life to sort of deal with, in my family's life. But yeah, I found out on my way into a meeting that I wouldn't be getting a contract. Unfortunately, it seemed as though they'd been talking in the canteen in that morning, and the ground staff maybe were in a conversation that they shouldn't have been in, and it wasn't their fault. They spoke to me very apologetically about feeling sorry for me having been released, and I didn't know at that time I was going into the meeting. So yeah, it was difficult, and like you say, you've seen it in recent times where I've got my daughter Mia, who you know, has done always loved football, big Wrexham fan, and yeah, she sadly found out the wrong way, if you like, and yeah, it's something that she had to deal with, as I did back in the day. So you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think she's become a lot stronger for having gone through that.
Well, some might go the other way though, and so it might affect them.
Yeah,
you know, much
quite easily, and yeah, I think it's something that you know we it was mentioned in the documentary and things like that, but it's really important. One of the easiest things in football is telling people they've got a contract. One of the most difficult is telling them they haven't, and I think that needs a lot more attention and care around it, because it's not just football, it's life. Yeah.
I was going to ask, what is the correct process for that? Is it or is it different club to club? Who makes that decision?
Yeah, I think it'll obviously differ from club to club, but there needs to be care and attention for the person, and not just about the football club. You know, a decision has been taken, and you have to respect that decision as a footballer. You know, I've had to do that, and been in that situation on both sides. So it's you know, it's one of those things that I think there just needs to be a bit more care around it. And you know, a lot of clubs, you know, they don't realise until after the event that you know, it has such a big impact on in particular young people, and you know, it's a time where, as with any job, you know, coming out of work is scary, and it's the unknown, and it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly.
And how did you feel towards Brian Little at the time? Do you think it was a good thing you found out the way you did? You had time to sort of prepare rather than being told face to face?
No, I don't think it was a good thing. I think it was something that shouldn't have happened. But how did I feel towards Brian Little? He's doing his job for the football club, and you know, they took a decision based on what they felt I could bring to the table, and it wasn't enough. So you have to respect that, and I think if I look back, I think I probably could have looked after myself better from a sort of, when I was injured, I came back too soon. I should have taken a bit more care around my well-being, if you like, and that probably played a part in why I ended up getting released, if you like. So yeah, difficult times, and you know, times that I do look back on now and again, but I tend to, more often than not, try and park them and forget about them.
Like I said earlier, you do strike me as someone who's happy with everything he's achieved. You've done the best you could. That's not from, I might be wrong, but that's how it seems to look to me. You did the best, you used the best of your ability. You didn't underachieve, you achieved exactly what the potential was.
Well, I think I did to a point. I think I retired very early, so 31 is an age where I didn't want to be finishing playing football professionally. But it was just that moment in time where you have to put all your cards on the table and be honest with yourself. And I think I was just at that point where I think I felt a little bit sort of beaten up with football after that decision to be released, and maybe mentally I was not in a good position with it, and I decided to step back a bit and went and played part-time for Real, which was a really good moment for me, good time for me, and that was an enjoyable time that I managed to maybe resurrect that sort of love for the game again, and that was important to me.
And played in the Champions League.
Yeah.
You played both games.
Yeah, against Partizan Belgrade. Yeah, so the result wasn't what we wanted, but ultimately it's still Champions League football, and that's a nice memory to have.
But being at Real, I understand, it gave you the opportunity to start your own business then. You started to work alongside it, because it's a part-time position at Rill.
Yeah.
Was that a nice transition, you think? You could slowly move away from football?
Well, I think I was just always conscious that, having never played at the top level and earned the monies that are probably around today, is that I always knew I had to get another job. And that was something that was in the back of my mind. I was a father of 3 young children, and you got a family to provide for. So I think there's probably, sentiment goes out the window in that, yeah, I'd love to stay in football and whatnot, but part of my reason for going to Rill was to ensure that I could keep my family where they were, the kids stable in school and whatnot, and also give me a chance to try and dip my toe in the water with a new business that I'd been working on, and that allowed me to get into that, and fortunately, very quickly, I did some work for a gentleman over in Manchester who then asked me if I'd like to apply for a role within the football club at Manchester City, and it quickly snowballed, and I ended up playing a year at Rill, enjoying my time at Rill, and then stepping away from football completely and taking up a role at Manchester City.
Which was involved in all recruitment and working with younger players?
Well, to begin with, it was running a program for the new ownership at Manchester City, and it was about bringing young, talented footballers from the Emirates over to the UK on a football exchange program. So I headed that up and ran that for 3 years, and then very quickly, I became involved in sort of the operations and recruitment side of everything at the academy at Manchester City, and that sort of took over then work-wise, and I very quickly sort of became involved in the mainstream running of Manchester City's academy for the next sort of 9 years. So really important part of my life.
And obviously, I think an important part in sort of British football, because there have been previous takeovers, Abramovich at Chelsea, this was one that really was a successful one from the beginning and transformed a club. Chelsea were always doing well. Man City were struggling to say,
Yeah, I think Man City at the time, not too dissimilar from Wrexham in many ways, just on a bigger scale. But the takeover that happened at City was very much, there was a clear strategy of how they wanted to do it and the timescales at which they wanted to do it. So objectives-wise, it was always about winning. So creating a winning culture, and then around that is ensuring that you don't lose sight that we want to retain our community feel. We want to make sure that we build on what we've got already. So the academy at Manchester City was a very successful academy. It produced a number of players over the years, but it needed a lift. It needed a revamp, and that's what they did. And they were very, very clear and concise with how they did that. And it was a pleasure to be part of that time at the football club. And you've only got to look on now and see the amount of players that are either in the team, have been in the team, or are at other successful football clubs now playing professional football. It's quite scary, really. If you
didn't quite achieve what you thought they would, and you achieved more than you expected.
Well, I think I think they all achieved more than what I expected, because it's very much the unknown when you're working with youth, is that things can change very quickly, and they've got to have sort of not only that sort of physical, technical, tactical ability and knowledge, but they've also got to have that sort of belief and that sort of mindset and professionalism to get there and stay there, because it's the Premier League now is the best league in the world, and for anybody to even make a Premier League team squad, be there on a match day, that is a success in itself, because this the standards are so high to reach. It's phenomenal, really, and you know, I look on with great pride that I was involved, a small element of some of those young players.
Well, the key moments in Man City's history, you were there obviously when they won the league for the first time, and subsequent successes. When did you leave? How long were you there for?
Yeah, so I joined in 2009 and I left in 2018. So I had 9 years. Yeah, I had 9 years of that, and you know, still witnessing some of the young players that are playing today, the likes of Phil Foden and, you know, other players that have gone, James McAtee, that, you know, he took a different route, he went on loan and then came back in. And that's the interesting thing, is that they're all, you know, all these young players, you know, not one's the same. You don't ever follow suit. And, you know, there's 4 or 5 of them now, that Nico O'Reilly and, you know, there's, you know, likes of Phil that I've mentioned as well, is that they, you know, they deserve everything that they're getting.
So was Mark Hughes still there when you joined?
Yeah, Mark was manager when I was there, and then you had obviously a number of managers changing over the years. Then with Roberto Mancini coming in and Manuel Pellegrini, and then obviously Pep Guardiola after that. So you know, they were all top level managers.
Do you think they're on the decline now, or is it just a blip?
No, I just think that the squad that Pep has worked with over the years, obviously they're coming to a sort of a natural sort of ending point, and you know, the likes of De Bruyne and Kyle Walker, John Stones and Ederson, the goalkeeper, you know, Bernardo Silva and people like that. It's, you know, it's just a natural thing that happens, and it happens, you know, with all sorts of clubs. I think the one thing with Man City is that, you know, they won't go away. They'll retain their sort of ability to develop young players, and that's what they seem to be doing now, going through a transitional phase of new players for the future. So yeah, you don't bet.
Is this foreign ownership a good thing? I think we're not going to go back now, are we? The stakes are too high. The game has evolved so much. You need someone to come in with serious money.
Well, yeah, you've got to, in order to, especially in the Premier League, you know, especially to be competing at that level, you have to have sort of serious amounts of money to not only be successful with, but on occasions lose. And that's what they've got, all these investors. And you know, I'm a big advocate of having British owners, but ultimately they've got to want to do it. And over the years, there hasn't been that many, I would say, that are able to come in and do what some of these ownership groups have done in terms of the investment and the quality of players that they've brought in, and you know, the TV rights now. It's a global phenomenon, and you know, that's working at such a commercial level that you need people like, obviously at Man City with Sheikh Mansour and
using the money well, as Wrexham have done. I think Newcastle hasn't quite taken off the way many thought.
No, and I think you know, they've still had a lot of change behind the scenes there at Newcastle. They've been through a number of managers, and you know, I think they're probably now starting to see some of the sort of recognition, if you like, for what's gone on there and the investment that's gone in. You know, and it's not easy. It's not easy to get it right. Not everybody gets it right straight away. And I think Newcastle will be just one of those that it will come good, and it'll just be a slow burn.
Mike Ashley, do you think he did a good job? Do you think he was hard done by overall?
To be honest with you, not really knowing a lot of the detail there, is that Mike Ashley was somebody that did invest money. Did invest his money, and you know, in the end, I think he just maybe did one or two things that left him out in the cold with the fans. So the connection with the fans is massively important, and I think you see that at most clubs. Is, you know, you look at Man United now, and there's a big sort of challenge with some of the fans' feelings around ownership, and you know, they they can be a powerful thing when the fans unite, as we've seen at Wrexham. It becomes a very, very strong force, and yeah, hopefully we see United come back. You know, I'm not a Man United fan, but I still want to see them be, you know, up there and competing, and it just adds to the Premier League, if you like, the attraction of it all. And you know, Liverpool.
But obviously Jim Ratcliffe is getting a lot of stick now. The Glazers have had it for years, even though I think they've done a good job. I know the way they financed the takeover is not appreciated, and that's a concern. But until Fergie left, and even since Fergie, they've always won trophies.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a minefield of things that have gone on at the moment at Manchester United, and you know, like I said before, I think Jim Ratcliffe's come in and probably pulled back the covers a little bit and unearthed a few things that he wouldn't have liked to have found. But ultimately, take over a football club, you buy it warts and all, and they have to deal with it now, and they have to deal with the consequences. And I know they're going through a number of cost-saving initiatives at the moment, which are not being received too well. And you know, it's challenging, but they're too big a club to not come back, and I hope they do.
Well, yeah, I think some fans don't understand the reality. They want the success. They don't realise how to get there and what's going on behind the scenes. And the reality is a lot different to what you expect.
Yeah, massively. It takes a lot more to run in a football club than what many of us truly appreciate and understand. Yeah.
And just to go back to Wrexham, Parkinson is probably so important to this run of success. He still gets a lot of stick, his style of football, and when things are going well, I hear, oh, he's taking us as far as we can.
Yeah, and I think, listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I think the one thing with Phil is that he's a very, very honest and humble man. You'll not see him sort of speaking too much about what's going on outside of, you know, what's happening on the pitch. And I think that's testament to the man, is that yes, there's a few murmurings at the minute about sort of people being unhappy, but honestly, you know, how can you be unhappy with where we are and where we sit today? It's reality is, you know, we're second in the league. We've done back-to-back promotions. We just missed out the year before we got promoted out the National League, and I think we have to be thankful for where we are. Like I said to you before, is that it's one thing having expectation levels, but it's another thing being realistic and kind of, you know, maybe overachieving to a certain extent too. So I think we get behind him. You know, we're still mid-season. We got 12 games to go, and you know, my focus is very much sort of backfill and the boys, and you know, if we don't play well, okay, let's just make sure we don't lose.
Who was your favourite manager? And what do you appreciate in a manager? What should a good manager do?
Well, that's a big question, but you know, my favourite manager was Brian Flynn, because he gave me my debut, and you know, he put me on the road to having a professional career, and I'll never forget that or forgive that. You know, it's one of those. You know, it'll live with me for a long time, getting my debut for Wrexham FC. And, you know, I think some of his qualities, Brian's, were very much, you know, man management. So he would always talk to you. So there was never a moment where you didn't feel you could approach him. I think being a good coach, you know, yes, he was a manager, but he was also one that was very much tactically aware and would always be there for words of advice. I think he was very good on the recruitment front, so he didn't leave that to others to do. He was very much involved in that, and that's why I think he got a lot of the signings right when he was at the football club. And the other thing is, he was able to sort of manage up as well, and he had a good relationship with the chairman. So obviously now the model is very much a technical director, but he was doing that role and the manager's role and working with the chairman, you know, in that capacity as well. So I think that goes a very long way to saying he was the reason why I think he was the best manager.
Yeah, and I understand that Brian Flynn set up a pension for you. Was that common back then? To be that sort of...
It was just one of those things that there was, you know, they did care about the people and that, and you know, advising you to do this, that, and the other, and you know, just generally being good people. You know, Brian had a great team around him: Kevin Reeves, Joey Jones, and Brian Prandall, Steve Weaver, and they were all decent people. They were all people that cared about you as a person as much as a player. So I always carried that with me through my time working in football, and made sure that, you know, any young players that maybe needed a bit of guidance, support, is that I tried to be there and offered what I got when I was a young kid. Is
there more help for players now? Let's talk about mental health. I know you had some issues. I won't go into too much detail, but obviously there was Gary Speed, what happened to Gary Speed. Has football learned from that, as behind the scenes?
I think it's evolving. I think it's still learning. I think there's an awful lot more to be done. You know, the stresses and the sort of you know, the impact that football can have and does have on mental health is huge. So there's still a lot more work that needs to be done. You know, sadly there's been some cases over the years, and you know, Gary being one that was very close to me, you know, had a major effect on me. And I think just in general, I think there needs to be a lot more awareness, and yes, there is support out there, but maybe at the lower levels, it needs to filter down from the higher levels, if you like.
So I think as a society, as we're more aware now, we're more open to talking and we're more open to seek help. I was just wondering how football had changed over the years, and is the support improved?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, I've not been in football for a number of years now, but what I understand is that there is the support there now, should you need it, should you want it. I mean, me personally, I was one of those that bottled everything up, so I never found it easy to open up, and I never found it easy to reach out for help. So that's still a little bit of a stigma with a number of people, not only in football but in any walk of life, is that you know, that having the confidence and the belief to open up to somebody is a huge thing, and it's the first step.
All walks of life is difficult. They say sport, when you lose, when you stop competing, and you lose that structure, perhaps, of...
Yeah, it's, you know, it's all that I ever knew since I was a young kid, and you know, you become sort of institutionalized in that you get up at a certain time, you eat certain foods, you do certain things, and obviously your training schedule is important, but also is the relationship with your teammates and your camaraderie of going into the changing room every day, and you know, whether it's having, you know, a good laugh together, whether, you know, you win, lose and draw together, so you go through so many emotions. And I think you know, back then it's just, you know, before I was playing, it was probably frowned upon that, you know, to get upset. You know, you wouldn't be able to get upset over a result. It would be, you know, man up sort of thing would be said. So I think those days have definitely gone, thank goodness. And you know, it just needs to be upfront and spoken about as much as possible.
And obviously the sports science has changed. Nutrition, people are more aware. I think young people in general are more aware of looking after themselves.
Yeah. There's, you know, it's great. It's, you know, the support that's there to give you every chance of recognising your dreams. So, you know, football's a really sort of unbelievable place to be if you can achieve what you set out to do. And you know, there's the percentages are very low in terms of those players that are able to do it, to get through that whole sort of system. And you know, there needs to be support for those that don't quite reach those limits, or those levels, sorry.
So since you've left football, now you've opened this fantastic wine bar in Wrexham. How did that come about? Tell us the story behind it.
Yeah, so basically, I'm one of 3 partners in the wine bar. We wanted to do something together. My 2 friends are very successful in their own right, and they wanted to do something in the city centre, and they approached me about getting involved, and we landed on doing a wine bar. We wanted to do something or fit somewhere in Wrexham in between sort of a pub, restaurant and nightclub, and we've got a beautiful wine bar that has taken a lot of blood, sweat and tears out of the 3 of us and others, but we're a year in, we're 12 months down the line of just coming up of what's been a really eventful, a successful year. It's got to be said. It's something that we set out to establish ourselves in year 1 in particular with a certain standard and a certain level of offering here, and we feel that we're on the right road to achieving that.
Has it given you excitement again? Are you sort of being sort of risky, interesting, exciting? What do you like about it?
Yeah, I think it's. The biggest thing that I do like about it is that it's very social. So I'm seeing people all the time, and it's always on a Friday and Saturday in particular. It's super busy. So you'll see people that you haven't seen for a long while. We're getting to host people that are in the music world now. We're starting to dip our toe in the water there, and that's interesting to me to see how all that works. It's all about sort of relationships with providers. So we've got breweries that are involved with us, the likes of Asahi, Peroni. We work with Aberfalls, a local distillery just up the coast. We're very lucky to have Rob McElhenney's whiskey brand here, so they've supported us through this whole first year of business, and I think all those things. It's like it's working with new people, and it's just that whole people bit. That's the biggest thing for me. It's it's an enjoyable thing to be involved in.
And what was most difficult about getting it up and running?
Well, I think there's been a number of things, and still your licenses and things like that. But the council were good on that. They supported us throughout that sort of process, and some of the other things that you have to learn. Obviously, it's stock taking, it's line clean, staff management, staff recruitment. We try and ensure that when we do open, we offer the best possible service, and we're not opening 7 days a week because we're not ready for that. I don't think Wrexham's ready for that yet. However, the 4 days and nights that we are open, it's been nice. It's we get regulars that are coming in, and that's good to build up relationships with them, and we just got to keep our standards and our quality offering high, and hopefully people will keep coming.
Yeah, but Wrexham, I think, has declined for a night out. So when I was growing up, we've lost a lot of nightclubs, a lot of bars have shut. I remember Brook Street when I was younger used to be packed at Scott's, and Chicago Rock was going.
Yeah, I think there are a number of places that have shut, as you say, but again, if we can encourage others to invest and to sort of get involved in the city centre nighttime economy, and then it'll be what it'll be. There'll always be a demand for hospitality venues, and hopefully, like I said, we can get more into the town and keep building the economy.
What time do you open on weekends? Is it all day, early?
We're open, yeah. Thursdays we open 5 till 11, and then Fridays is 1 till midnight, Saturdays 12 till midnight, and Sundays is 1 till 11. So, occasionally we'll open when Wrexham are home on a Tuesday, or this week as an example, will open on Wednesday in the daytime. So it's, you know, we're just testing the water really and seeing what works and what doesn't.
And you're here anyway, 7 days a week or 5 days a week?
Yeah, I'm here, yeah. I'm here pretty much most of the time. So as you can hear from my voice, I probably need to get a little break in at some point. But it's something that you've got to be all or nothing. And I'm like that anyway with anything that I do. Is if I'm going to do it, I want to do it and do it well.
Well, it really is a special place, to be honest. It's really nice and it seems to be doing really well. And I'm sure it'll be open for a number of years yet. Neil Roberts, thank you so much for this, mate. I really do appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you, bud. Thank you.